After weeks of leaks, the R5C is finally here. It has been announced literally 10 minutes ago. So let's just quickly jump in and share some thoughts about the latest addition to the Canon Cinema Range. Firstly, let's address the elephant in the room. Pete's not here. No, he is in COVID jail. Yes, that's right. He's got the Rona. So I thought I'd just jump on just on my own at my desk. The announcement happened literally 10 minutes ago. I've written down a couple of notes about the R5C, and I just wanted to share my thoughts about it, share some facts that we now know about this camera, and really start a conversation with you guys. I want to know what you think about the R5C. Is it a rushed compromise from Canon, or is this genuinely been something that's been in the planning for a long time, and they have now introduced a hybrid camera into their cinema range? Interesting. Let's start with what we definitely know. We know for certain that we're going to get the 8K DCI 12-bit RAW at up to 30 FPS internally, which is the same as the Canon R5. We knew this was going to happen. We know that we can have RAW recording, XF, AVC and MP4 if you choose for a lighter codec. We also know that you're going to have 4K oversampled from that 8K resolution. Interestingly, we didn't know before, the 4K you'll be able to record up to 120 FPS. That's kind of standard now. We'd expect that from a video-centric camera, but we will be able to use the dual pixel autofocus at 120 frames per second and with audio. I think that's a pretty big deal. Not that the audio is going to be particularly usable if you're recording at 120 FPS and then putting it back into a, 25 frames per second timeline, but it does open up some opportunities that wouldn't have been there before, and a lot of cameras don't tend to record audio when you're recording at higher frame rates. So that's pretty cool. More cool is the dual pixel autofocus being able to be used at such a fast frame rate at such a high resolution. The 8K DCI, obviously that was an issue with the R5. We were kind of had our minds blown when Canon announced that you could do 8K recording first of all on a hybrid camera, but everyone got it and it overheated, started melting their hands. Now, Canon have addressed this by putting an external fan like we see with the Lumix S1H has that, and with the Canon cinema cameras of the past, even the XC10 and XC15, the Canon C range, the C70, they all have external fans, so you can have unlimited recording times. The Canon R5C introduces this, so it makes it a slightly bulkier body, a bit more akin to the C70, but that does mean that we have, well, Canon stopped short of saying unlimited 8K recording. Interestingly, in the announcement, the spec says it has a long duration 8K recording. Hopefully that does mean unlimited recording times, and hopefully that fan is good enough to be running all the time in an almost silent way, but that will offer unlimited or at least very long recording times at 8K. I think that's a really important thing. We got the confirmation that it will have C-Log 3 for wider dynamic range if you want that, so 14 stops. Whether that's actually usable stops or not, we'll see, but it is offering a lot of dynamic range, and C-Log 3 is obviously a very popular way to record, so it's kind of very important that that was in there for the video-centric users. One thing that we weren't expecting that is really exciting is dual base ISO. So for really super clean, low light recording, having what is a dual native ISO system, that's really exciting. Again, just very good for us video shooters. Electronic image stabilization. I saw quite a few people in the live chat talking about this negatively, how the electronic image stabilization is unreliable. And yes, it can be, but it has been a mainstay in a lot of the Canon C range for a while. It tends to work in tandem with your glass if it has some kind of IS in there. So, for example, the old L series lenses always had image stabilization, typically anyway. So it'll work in tandem with that. How good it is and how quirky it is remains to be seen till we get hands-on with the camera. But I would say I'm pretty confident from at least the demo shots that they showed. There was no quirky artifacts happening. So fingers crossed, it is a good electronic image stabilization and not one where you start seeing that weird warping in the corners makes you feel a bit seasick while you're watching stuff. There was also the additions of the really important video-centric things that they've just taken straight out of the cinema line and put in a hybrid camera. Waveforms, false colors, LUT support, and when you've put the camera in video mode, you also have the option to set it into a degreed shutter angle rather than a timed shutter angle. It's the same thing, essentially, but for us video shooters, we're used to seeing things at 180 degree shutter angles. As an example, that's in there. It just nods that this whole design of the software, at least of this camera, is for a video shooter first. And they even said as much in the announcement that now they see the R5 for being photography focused and the R5C for being video focused users, but they are hybrids, so they are capable of doing both interchangeably. And that leads us on to quite an interesting point, quite an interesting moment in the history of Canon. Canon historically have always had a complete separation between their photography cameras and their cinema or video cameras, and quite often when they released a new hybrid camera, they would miss out features that perhaps their competitors would have in the likes of Sony, for example. And the camera community were always very hard on Canon for this. Why have they missed out? 4K uncropped video was a good example for a long time. And it was almost always because Canon were protecting their cinema range of cameras. They didn't want too many features to bleed over because they saw this as a sacred part of their business. Now, the R5C is the first one that openly connects those two sides, a hybrid cinema range camera. Now, we have seen the C70. That was a kind of merging of the two. And before that, we did see cameras like the XC ranges, and they were kind of hybrid, but from the cinema range. But this is the first one that's openly, it is a mixture of both. It's even got the same moniker as the both. It's the R5C. So a cinema camera that is in a hybrid form factor that takes the best of both worlds and puts them together. Is this the start of a new generation of Canon? Are they going to be doing this all the time? Or is it a one-off to appease the people that were so angry about the shortcomings of the R5? Well, we'll see. What do you think? Let me know in the comments because I'm kind of really interested about this. So I guess the big thing really for me with this camera before it was released, and we were looking in the Camera News show about the leaks and talking about this camera coming up, was, is it a planned release? Has this been a long time? It's been in the timeline for Canon for ages. Or is this a knee-jerk reaction to the backlash from the Canon R5 and the camera community being upset about the shortcomings, especially the overheating with this camera? On face value, I was almost certain that it was a knee-jerk reaction, that having a video-centric R5 with what was supposed to be unlimited recording times was just a blatant reaction to the R5 overheating and people feeling shortchanged because of that. But now seeing the launch and seeing how delicately they have joined the hybrid or photography cameras with their cinema range, it now feels like perhaps this could be something that has been planned much more than that, and that this is the start of something very new for Canon, where they no longer have this separation between photography and video, and everything becomes a bit more hybrid. They don't protect one side or the other as much as they used to. Of course, there's still features that are going to be missing from this camera. If it was a true video camera, it probably would have had internal ND of some kind. It probably would have had mechanical in-body image stabilization. I didn't see in the release if it did have a full-size HDMI or not. I may have just missed that. If I have, let me know. I'm sure you will. I'm hoping it does have a full-size one. If it's one of the micro HDMIs, it's just a little bit of a shortcoming, a bit of a frustration. But for me, anyway, it feels like that Canon have made a purposeful step into a new era for them, where they are merging the two big sides of their imaging business. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. I really want this to be a bit of a discussion about this camera because it's been a long time coming and it's a very interesting moment in Canon's timeline. Camera's timeline? I can't even speak anymore. Price point is obviously going to be a big one for people. I've just brought it up on one of the retailers in the UK. We're looking at £4,500. It's a little bit more expensive than I was expecting, if I'm honest. but it's probably about in line with Canon's other cameras, so it doesn't nerf anything else. It doesn't undercut anything too severely. If that does offer true 8K DCI unlimited recording and does hold up to the 12-bit gorgeousness that trailer that Canon put out suggests, that's a hell of a lot of camera for your money. I hope that it is this long-term planned, beautiful filmmaking tool and isn't this kind of unfortunate compromise that it could be just a year on from the R5 and they're just reacting to the bad attention that got. Only time will tell when people get this in their hands. As long-time viewers of this channel know, we've got a bit of a prickly history of Canon. Long-time Canon users, I use a lot of Canon products, always have. They don't seem to want to send us anything ever to get hands-on. Up to them. So whether we get hands-on or not will be another thing. But if we do, obviously you'll be the first to know. And to make sure you are the first to know, please do subscribe to our channel, like this video, let us know in the comments what you think about the R5C. And if you really love what we do here, we do have memberships as well where you can get some unedited behind the scenes nonsense from me and Pete here. Pete, who would normally be here or across the table, he's not here because he's got the Rona. So, you know, show him some love in the comments too. But that's it. Let us know what you think of the Canon EOS R5C. It is here after weeks of leaks. We've been given a treat. Yeah, I should be a poet. That's good, isn't it? Anyway, until the next time, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.